Hey guys and girls, welcome back to 396 Guitars. I'm Blackjack. We have a Telecaster Nashville on the bench today. We are looking into some wiring issues. Customer bought it. It's a used guitar to him. I'm going to pop the control plate and see what's going on in there. And the complaint is uh, no response from the tone control. I checked it the other day and it wasn't working. I checked it today and it is working, but it's kind of wonky. So something is in suspect in the control plate. Let's get that off. I've already taken the strings off. We're going to get this off and look in there. It definitely has had some rewiring done to it. These are not stock pickups that we are aware of. Um, and from what I could see the other day that I did not like, I was also hearing some ground noise on it. It just didn't look good. The wiring didn't look right. It didn't look correct to me, but um, yeah, like right off, the switch isn't wired right. Um, the switch is not wired right. There's humongous globs of solder where the ground all goes to the volume pot. They have it. They have the. Huh. See, I wouldn't put the cap this way. I would have it from the center lug here to the tone, not crossed over to the volume, and using that lug as a ground. I don't like that. I try to illustrate what that is. This right here. I don't like that jumping from the tone to the volume. You guys can argue it, jump my shit all you want, but I have seen problems with that configuration before. Don't like it. Um, what we're going to do is take that lug, ground it to the volume. Yeah, and this one's loose, so that could be our part of the ground issue. So is that one. Well, that's probably part of our ground issue. We're going to remove the cap and solder it to the tone pot. And just a lot of this wiring looks suspect. Like it's some of it's too long, some of it's too short. It's not correct. I don't like it. I think I'm going to undo the whole thing and start fresh. I think we can reuse the switch. I don't think there's anything wrong with the switch. Plus, there's no jumper from fourth lug to fourth lug. Hmm. Yeah, I don't trust this at all. I don't like this system. I don't like the way the guy, big globs of solder everywhere. Horrible job. That lug looks loose. I'm gonna have to really inspect this switch. Could just be the wire. Um, I'm pretty sure we can reuse the switch, but we're gonna shit can these pots and start fresh. I do have a couple of Fender pots here. These are. I can't tell without pulling them off. They're not minis, but I don't know if they're 250 or 500s. We'll find out. They're CTS. I mean, they should be 250s in there. Okay, I digress. I'm going to undo this. We're going to clean up this and make sure that it's working properly, or maybe it might just be one of the lugs broke there. Needs to be repaired. Stand by while I get this desoldered and out of there. And then we're going to go to work. We're going to rewire this and we're going to flip it around. He wants it flipped around so it's like that. I don't know why, but we're going to have to make sure that we wire it thusly so that it works in the opposite position. Stand by. Okay. Yeah, most definitely you can see the glop job on this right here. I love it when I get somebody who doesn't know what they're doing and I have to fix their work. Not only did the moron that did this solder job. He hooked the wires in every terminal and clamped them down. So if you ever do have to take it apart, guess what? It turns into a major problem. I'm going to show you the proper way to do it. And this idiot did not know what he was doing. Clearly, because it's soldered wrong. The wiring isn't even correct the way he has it with the cap jumping across. I mean, I've seen it before, but what a horrible job. What an absolute piece of garbage. I'm going to get shit can these and we're going to put new ones on. The first thing we're going to do is address the 5-way switch. I have inspected it very closely because I had to put a fair amount of torque to pull the damn wires off of the terminals. But the right way to do this is to first load up the lug with a little bit of solder, and then you tin the end of your wire that lug is going to receive. Then all you have to do is touch the solder iron to the lug and push the wire through, and that's it. Take the solder iron off, and it will bond instantly to a perfectly good joint. But I have to clean all these up and reload them. He ran a wire through, clamped it tight, and then tried to glop solder onto the lug. Not only is it harder, but it's the dumbest way to do it. And the guy that did this clearly didn't know what he was doing at all. I mean, not even remotely close. So get to where you can hold it good. Get some solder. And all you have to do is tin your tip. Tin your tip. All right. You hold it to the lug and then run some solder in until the hole fills. And it will fill on its own. And this makes it so much easier to work later on. Now these 4 lugs are ready to accept the wire. These 4 lugs are not. And those are the ones we're going to fill now. I'm just going to fill them all. That's what I do because we're going to use almost all of them. Almost. Get it around here where we can work with it. That looks better. I hope my head isn't in the way. Just tin your tip, hold it to the lug. And then just put a little solder until the hole is filled up on the lug. Now all those lugs are ready to accept the wire. Now the wire, it's got the wrong kind of wire in here. I wouldn't use this. I don't know if this was from Fender or not, but I wouldn't ever use it like that. I don't like that kind of wire, but I like the cloth covered wire. That's for the output jack. These are our pickups, 2 yellows and a white. I have them labeled. This is a ground, I'm assuming coming from, I'm assuming that it's coming from the bridge because we have a ground in the body right there with a lug screw. I can only assume that this ground one, 2, 3 black wires. These are pickup grounds. Okay. They can be converted to a common ground and 1 solder point on the back of the new. This is our only ground for the body. So these are our grounds that correspond with the yellow, yellow, white from the pickups. These are all common. They're going to go to one point on the back of the volume pot. Okay, so as far as the way we're going to wire it, you're going to get this garbage off of here first because the guy made such a mess out of it, we can't reuse it. And judging by the way he's done this, he probably overheated this pot because there's so much solder on there, and it doesn't need to be that much. There's also a correct way to do that. Do I sound angry? It's because I am. I hate monkeying with other people's stupidity. Now, I have to remember that he wants this control plate to be backwards. In other words, the switch to be at the bottom and the volume and tone, or tone and volume on the top. Let me see. Yeah, it'll be tone, volume, switch. Thusly. I don't know why. Maybe it's a thing. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I've never heard of it. He never got these tight. Probably because he didn't put a spacer down there. And they're just moving around, which means they're not grounded correctly. I digress. I'm going to pause briefly while I take this apart, get the new pots out here. I'm going to show you how to solder them on the back, make a nice ground puddle, and same thing, you'll load up the lugs with solder and get ready to do it. Stand by. So all things being equal, customer wanted the trying to figure out here. Volume is going to be there. So I want neck, neck, middle, 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 bridge, and just bridge. So he wanted the switch down here, but it won't go because of the route down in the pocket. So that's where we're at right now. So the switch is going to stay in that position, but I'm switching the tone and the volume. And that in and of itself, you have to puzzle out exactly how it's going to position in there. And not only that, where to put your positions. So that is the neck position, as it would be in there, which down here translates to this lug over here, which is opposite of what the diagram that I'm reading. But that's the only way that it can go. Yeah. Or we can turn the switch around. Stand by while I make sure that I puzzle this out and make sure that it's exactly how I want it before I put it together. Otherwise, it could end up being backwards when we get it in there, and then we have to do it all over again. Stand by. Okay, so yeah, we just got to make sure you're in the right direction. So neck is still going to, even though the volume's going to be here and oriented this way, volume's going to be here. Tone is going to be here because he wanted the tone, the volume out of the way of the switch, as it were. You now go through and solder all your lugs. There's a ground that has to go from there to the back of the pot, and then we're going to put the cap in, okay? But before you do all that, you want to preload all the lugs, and that's pretty important. Like I said, instead of putting the wire through, hooking it, and then soldering it, because if you ever have to take it apart, like I did today, you won't piss off the guy that has to work on it next time. It's pretty easy. Tin your solder tip, get it on the lug, push the solder through till the lug hole is filled. Pretty simple, pretty basic stuff. I do them all, even though on the tone we don't have to do them all. Do them all anyway. You're there. Now, we do have to also put some ground on the back of the pot. And the way I do that is scratch it, get a clean surface right here where the lug has to ground to it, and then pick a random spot where you're going to put your ground wires for your pickups, and the same on the tone pot, because you're going to have to ground the output jack. You just shine it, just take off the coating of the back of the pot. Pretty simple. Make sure your temperature. Now, this goes pretty well the same way. All we're doing is loading up a puddle here to accept our ground points. That's all. And our lug has to be grounded on the volume pot to the back of the pot. You bend it towards it, solder it to the place you cleaned off. I know you can't see a lot of this, but you'll pick up some tips. Get a nice puddle on there, clean, should be nice and shiny. Just get enough on there and heat it up to where it's nice and silver. That's going to accept your ground points when you pull them together from the pickups. Next is the cap, which goes from the center lug of the tone pot to the ground point. All right, so I'm going to basically solder that cap into the center lug, and the other part of the cap wire is going to solder to that puddle that we just put on there. And you don't need a whole bunch of wires sticking through. First, get the cap into the lug. A gentle tug will tell you if you're home, and you are. The rest of it is pretty simple. Just so as long as it's touching, you'll be golden. And then you, same as always, you solder the tip. You're basically tinning the tip of your solder iron. So you have something on there. And the solder, when you're tinning your solder tip, it gets hot enough that it's going to accept on your puddle that you put there. It makes a good joint. Your cap is installed. You shouldn't be sitting there with the solder iron and the solder and trying to get, because it won't work that way. You start with you see how clean that is and how nice that is. When you're done with it, you just bend it over, it's out of the way. Right? Nice and clean. I am going to pause there while I do the rest of this tiny meticulous work, and then I'll show it to you when we're finished. Stand by. So off camera, yeah, we got most all the rest of the soldering done. Interesting. I was overthinking how to do the switch to where the volume is down here, which it is now. Neck position, nothing. Volume is down here now instead of tone. Tone, you hear the difference. This should be the neck and the middle. Change your tone. Yep. Middle only. Beautiful. This should be neck, bridge, and middle. Change your tone. And then you go down just the bridge. Yeah, we got tone. We have volume control. And this was the big thing that he wanted. He wanted the volume down here instead of in the middle because he said it interfered, you know. Probably could have just put a smaller button on it, but I, dumbass that I am, I was overthinking the position and backwards and turned around, and I, off camera, ended up tap testing everything with little leads to, you know, to see where we're at. But it all worked out. You got the tone is working in the middle here now, and this is your volume. Very interesting. I'm going to clean up the guitar and do a restring and a setup on it, but pretty much that's that's one for the books. It's blackjack with 396 guitars. You never know what you're going to get on your bench from day to day. This guy wanted his volume and his tone switched on a Telecaster control panel, and I overthought it and did it wrong the first time off of camera, and then okay, all right, here it is. I got it. We'll talk soon.